Welcome, everyone, to the Service Lounge. I'm your host, Brandon Nixon, and this is episode 9, where we are going to be talking about all things fixed operations and specifically regarding marketing strategies. So with me today, we brought our big guns today. We've got Connie Gundrum from CF Search Marketing with us today. So Connie, thank you for joining on and welcome to the Service Lounge.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me. I love this topic, so this should be a good one. It's fun for me.
Absolutely. Well, we thought, as our past episodes, we've been talking about process and improving the customer experience and how that can really improve, from a dealership's perspective, their performance as a whole. And I always like this topic of marketing because I feel like it's a section that most dealers are just not talking enough about when it comes to fixed operations. Dealers are always putting so much money into marketing and so much focus on the front end of the house when it comes to retail. But when it comes to their highest profit margin with the fixed operations department, this is often left behind, right? So again, thank you for jumping on, and exciting to kind of get your insights into how dealers can get started into fixed operations marketing and really focus and get higher performance there. So for everybody on today who may not know you, Connie, can you kind of give a brief introduction, some of your background, your experience, and start off with that?
Yeah, so I've been in marketing now 25 years to date myself. All tier 3 automotive retail, helping dealers, first on the traditional side, radio, TV, anything from on-hold messages, then going into the digital side many years ago. And really pride myself on consulting, what is going to help them sell and service more cars. So I really want the dealers to win in all facets of their business.
Awesome. So what sort of, companies have you worked for in the past that really drive marketing? And has it been always on fixed op side? Has it been mainly on front end? What does that look like?
I've always pretty much been on the agency side. I worked for dealer.com for a year or so in my career, but mostly agency side. And it's all of their profit centers, right? Sales, new cars, used cars, parts, service, the full gamut.
Awesome. So diving right in, the first topic I always want to talk about is, why are dealers, especially on the fixed operations side, neglecting to focus on marketing, right? From a service manager's perspective or service director's perspective, when you start throwing around stuff around marketing, they kind of go into limbo, right? That's not their focus. They're focused on the day-to-day, focusing on the customer, the operations, and profitability and sales right there. So why do you think that, dealers are not focusing as much on the marketing side, and what's the cost behind that? What are they losing out on by not putting their focus on, marketing out to those customers to drive more business into their service department?
I think there's two things. One is dealers are always prioritizing sales. How can I make my objective? How can I make my goal, my new car, my used car goal? And agencies like myself, we're not even talking to the service department oftentimes. I'll request, hey, why don't we have the service manager come into our ad meeting? So we're having ad meetings, but we're not talking to service. And I think secondly, the service managers don't really understand digital. Dealers over time have really adjusted and have learned digital, but service managers haven't. And again, like you said, they're focused on the day-to-day. So, since fixed ops is the backbone of dealership profitability, not having a solid marketing plan means we're losing appointments and revenue, right? So what's the, service marketing budget, because that's critical to staying competitive. And it's not just they're doing direct mail or they're doing email, but there's so many more tactics that they're not using.
Yeah, and I would say too, we're seeing a shift in the industry, right? I was just talking with someone last week about, we're getting back to that like 2019 way that the industry was, right? We're getting past this COVID experience where profitability was through the roof on the front end of the house. And now, as new car profits are starting to thin out, dealers are starting to focus more on the fixed operations department. So I really think this year is going to be a big boom for fixed operations. And I think one of the great starts, like you had said, is focus on marketing, because they're not part of these meetings. They're not part of the ad spend meetings and what you guys should be focusing on. So I think, especially for those of you listening on, if you're looking to really improve for this year, and if you're a GM listening in with your ad spend, I think this is the section that's really going to help to catapult your highest profit margin at the dealerships, right? Fixed operations has always been that hub of the profit margin there. So Well, let's talk
Right.
about, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I agree.
So let's talk about best practices. If I'm a service director looking to just now dive into getting into fixed operations marketing, what would be some of your introductory, hey, here's what you should start at, what you should focus on to really get your foot in the door? Because I'm sure this is new and can be confusing for a lot of people
Mhm.
who haven't really dove in or put a lot of money towards this portion of their business.
Yeah, so I would start by looking at co-op opportunities. We work with Volkswagen. We're a partner for their fixed ops for their dealers, and there are co-op opportunities out there. So for other OEMs, there might be as well. So start there. Maybe there's some money that you could be using towards these initiatives. And then, like I said, there's often direct mail or email that's going out. But what digital tactics can you use? There's the Jiffy Lubes out there and all these, independents that are advertising. So if you do a Google search, right? Everybody's starting with a Google search,
Yep.
oil change near me, right? Who's showing up in your market? And oftentimes it is those third parties. So our Toyota oil change near me, right? So definitely paid search. I mentioned Google. And then, there's also paid social using Facebook and Instagram for putting your ads out there. And video, YouTube, it
Yep.
depends on if you have a nice, Wi-Fi, which we can talk about. So, are you showing up? I think specifically those are the basics. Are you showing up on Google and adding content to your site as well will help you show up organically on Google. So those are, I think, the beginnings of a great digital strategy.
Absolutely. And I could see on the digital side of things, like you said, it's a great point that the independents are already doing this, right? So for those of you listening on, the one thing I just heard from you that's a good takeaway is go Google oil change in my area and see what pops up. Are you even in that search, category that's popping up? Are your ads regarding certain service specials that you have regarding oil changes, tire rotations, and things like that? Are you guys promoting those sorts of information to drive more customers into your service center, right? I think one of the biggest areas that we are consistently seeing when customers are defecting away from the new car dealerships over to the independents is they're complaining about time and price, right? So I think especially if you're going to focus on your marketing, how can you take that message, since those are the two biggest complaints, and drive that into your marketing out to the customer so that when somebody does Google, oil change in my area, that the message is around that, hey, we're able to accomplish an oil change for your new car, in 60 minutes or less, or whatever it might be, whatever that message is that's
Mhm.
addressing those two customer concerns and being affordable, right? Giving ads regarding your affordable services that you put out there so that they're not just assuming that, because the common conception is that, or inception is that, car dealerships are way too expensive and I don't want to bring it in for service, right? So driving your marketing around how you guys do have more of an affordable option, and it's beneficial because you're using certified technicians and all of that around it, warranties, everything behind that, I think is great to focus on with those online marketing areas. So,
Yeah, just like new cars, every month it's, oh, hey, these are the incentives. How can we make them better? This is the lease. I'm going to lower it by $100.
yeah,
What are we doing for service? Is that call coming in? Right. So what are like you said, the incentives, the merchandising, the why buy here? Why should I service here? What do you do differently? And
yeah,
making sure that's consistent across all of your channels, whether it's email, whether somebody's searching you online and they're going to get that message, doing a video that lives on your website, doing a video that might be on YouTube when somebody is looking up those kind of keywords, right? Are
yeah.
a really important way to get that across and be
So
competitive.
one thing you mentioned too that I thought was interesting is, first off, start by looking up your co-ops. What would you say are, in your experience, how many times have you ran into dealers where they don't even realize that they have co-op money available to them on marketing for the fixed operations time? Yeah, how much or how often are these dealers just forgetting about that and it's just unused money that's sitting there?
Yeah, it's either unused, so I'd say a lot of the time, or it's set and forget, right? And they
Okay.
don't even they're using it through maybe turnkey providers, and they aren't managing measuring what they manage, right? So
Yeah.
inspect what you expect. So it's just been running and it's not even really working. So it's about looking at what you are doing, measuring the effectiveness, and then also seeing if there's any other opportunities out there or new opportunities, reallocating the budget maybe that you've been using.
Well, I know I've had conversations with managers all the time when you bring something up around marketing and they'll say, oh, yeah, we've got this OEM program that's co-op, but we really don't get much from it. Right. And
Right.
oftentimes the reason they respond to that like that is because they've never looked into it. Right. They just know
Right.
that it gets extracted out of their budget and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing and they never look at it again. So I
No.
think, like you said, the first thing is check your co-ops. And if you are already spending money, go audit it. Spend some time this month looking at where your money is being spent regarding your ad spends and your co-op marketing so that you can set yourself up, especially for the new year, up for, a different strategy. Definition of insanity is doing the same thing,
Yeah.
expecting different results, right? So it's
Right.
great to dive in there.
And it might not be the channel. Maybe it's the message, going back to the messaging, so did they just set it up and not give any information about what makes them different? Is it going to look like every other dealer's ad or
Yeah,
is it going to be custom for them? So who knows? Maybe they have the right channel, wrong message. So that's important to look at.
absolutely. So I know that you've got some examples, and you had mentioned to me on our call last week that you've done some pretty cool things with VW McKenna out in Cerritos, California. Can you kind of share some insight? What have you seen firsthand with dealers that do focus on the fixed operations side? What sort of results can dealers expect when they're going through a new process of really diving into that messaging and investing more on the fixed op side there?
Yeah. So, VW, McKenna, Cerritos, they came to us with low brand awareness. No one really knew who they were.
Yep.
They had really strong local competition going back to those, Google searches. They weren't showing up. They didn't have online bookings. Their online bookings were really low. So we came up with a strategy to use hyper-targeted search engine marketing, SEM, to serve specific keywords. So again, going back to Volkswagen oil change near me, Volkswagen tires, brakes,
Okay.
batteries, the core four. And then also the offers. We use seasonal promotions to capture demand at the right time. So customized offers, not just cookie cutter offers. And, the results spoke for themselves. Our cost per clicks were under $2, actually $1.28. That's very
Nice.
inexpensive for paid search. Usually it's around $3. 90 conversions. So a conversion is a form submission, a phone call, a chat, or a text. And their cost per conversion was $5.28, which is extremely low. So this really just shows that paid search can be effective, efficient, and the more dealer involvement that you get, the better the campaigns are going to be because you're going to get those customized, why buy here, why buy now,
Yep.
and also, committing to it. They committed to it. So they've been running it for a long period of time. And over time in our space and digital, campaigns get more efficient and drive more leads. The budgets go down. So with the same, let's say you're spending $1,000, and you started at $3 a click, and then they're going to get more efficient, so you're going to get more leads for the same budget over time.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny, as you're talking about this, I just realized, and this is no joke, my wife, we just actually turned in her Volkswagen, but she had a Volkswagen Atlas Cross Sport, right? And I was doing the same thing, like looking up Volkswagen service around in my area. And I'm just, so people who are listening on, where I'm located out in Cheeto Hills, which is about 35 miles east of where VW McKenna Cerritos is. And I'm getting the ads for VW
Yeah.
McKenna Cerritos. I just realized, and I remember seeing them, but as you were speaking about it, I'm like, yeah, so whatever you were doing is still even hitting me where I'm at. And I'm all the way out in Chino Hills, which is, a
Yeah.
good distance away. And there's plenty of VW stores around me, but I was still
Right.
getting on those paid ads at the top. I was still getting those
Yeah.
McKenna ads there.
Because
So
you're in an in-market audience. So that's one of the things that an agency can help you with. Who's in market? So
okay,
Brandon showed intent online, and Google is saying, oh, he's, in market. And so we gather those audiences and then we plug them in and then we serve our ads to them, those kind of people.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good example that I've even experienced
Well, thank you.
firsthand. So
You helped me out with that one.
that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So you also, came up with an, a scaling method with this, right? And it sounds like you've had some really good success with Volkswagen. Do you mind sharing a little bit of how you've done well with Volkswagen, and then how can that also carry over with other brands as well?
Yeah, because we're a Volkswagen, a partner for fixed ops. They really, they obviously they partnered with agencies to help get dealers to advertise more, right? And so they're really seeing the value in digital. So they said to us, like, listen, we're going to put out an incentive. This was over November, December, just last year. We're going to put out an incentive. We'll pay 1 month, and they can pay a month. So buy one, get one free.
Yeah.
So we launched 86 Volkswagen dealers in November, and in that campaign, and you know, 65% of them stayed on. So after the fact, 65% of them actually stayed on long term. And
Yeah.
those who canceled, I found it was really interesting. They did so while the campaigns were still running. So
Okay.
they didn't even look at the results. They just
Yeah.
wanted their 1 month free, and then they canceled. And that just says to me that, again, there are many dealers that don't see the value in spending the money. They're not even willing to see how it pans out. But the good news was 65% of them did see the value. And in that campaign, we drove leads for about $21, because those are new campaigns. I talked about campaigns maturing. You saw
Yeah.
Doritos at $5. That's what could happen over time as your campaigns really learn and grow. And Google really figures out who that customer is that's really in market and serves them to people that are more likely to convert to a lead.
Awesome. Awesome. I like that. I mean, it's funny that you bring up the ones that did cancel or mid campaign, and it's probably because they were just, like you said, looking to take advantage of the
Right.
free information right in front of them, right? But it's important to view the results. If you're going to go down the road of anything, like you said, inspect what you expect. Let's see what those sorts of results are, and that's where I do think that that's definitely a failing point with many dealers out there, not especially on the marketing side, is they may be spending money today and you're not inspecting that along the way. So let's get back to the messaging side of it. And I really want to tie
Yeah.
this in with what we're doing with the service lounge on the customer experience, right? And everything that we've talked about on this is how do we positively affect the customer experience, which is going to drive additional results when they actually show up to your dealership. I know, Connie, you and I had worked in the past with a couple of our dealers of generating videos for them that promote, here's what to expect when you show up in the service drive. And a lot of the dealers have marketed around that. Can you share, some information regarding that, of how you can work with dealers to create their own brand, and that's going to differentiate themselves in the market through videos like, hey, here's what to expect when you arrive at the service department?
Yeah. So, they say people don't read the internet anymore. They watch the internet. We saw that with YouTube and how YouTube
Yeah.
got so big. Video is how people like to consume their media. And so, building a page on your website, why service here, is really important. What, like you said, the factory trained technicians and the time, and, who they are and what their process is. If they're using, a service app like Update Promise, and they
Yeah.
have this amazing process in place where they have transparency, and, you're showing the videos, why not, show the customer those kind of things, and, use that video on the pages on the website. You can use it, on social media. You can have it on your YouTube, which is also really good SEO. So if somebody were to be searching for it, you can send it to the customers. So there's just so many really good uses for video and telling the story. There's car dealerships everywhere, right? So why do I choose you? And it's not just sales, it's service. Why come to you? And I can tell you, even in my market, where I am, I've done these types of videos, and I've had dealers with these processes, and I don't see them locally here. I'd love it if a dealer
Yeah.
had that locally. I just don't think it's highly adopted, and I think it's a huge miss for branding for the dealership.
Well, we've always said fixed ops is going to be the new sales, right? It is the new sales, right? People are going to be choosing their dealerships of who they buy their vehicle from based off the service experience that they get long term, right? They want to build that relationship with the dealer. So I agree with you that the more that you can create that brand and marketing ads. Like, for instance, I've got a Toyota store on the East Coast that made a full commercial solely on outlining nothing about sales. It's just, if you want to work with our dealership, here's how we're going to maintain and service you long term, because you're going to be a partner with us, right? And a 30-second paid ad regarding that with a video explaining your service process can get somebody who's maybe looking, like you said, at the hundreds of dealers around in their area to go, that's the dealership I want to work with, because they're actually promoting and showing me that when I show up, there's going to be transparency, right? I'm going to get a video regarding my vehicle. I'm going to be kept informed, right? I can pay online and make it more efficient. I think the more you can drive that message there and not just focus on your video ads regarding the sales side, you'll get customers as a result buying more vehicles from you because they want to work with you long term.
They want, yeah. And there's the pickup and delivery for service. So many dealers offer that. You know, they're all, it's a Ford program. All the Ford stores have it. And more than just Ford. I mean, certain dealers have done this for years, and I never see that. As a busy professional, I would love it. Again, I don't have that experience here in my market, but I would love it if somebody would come pick up my car and service it, or change the oil in the parking lot. And you're right, it makes me want to go back. Like I was a customer of JM Lexus for 10 years, and I loved going there because they have massage chairs and a cappuccino maker. I could work. They had desks. I could work from there with my Wi-Fi. I could get in the massage chair and I could have my cappuccino. So it is about that. And if you're doing those things, if you're not doing it, start. And if you are, then tell everybody you are, because it's the best kept secret, right?
Well, I've always said too, oftentimes when we find out how good a dealership is, it's probably because we looked them up online to find out reviews, right? So I want to hear what customers are saying. But a lot of times too, it's when you're at Thanksgiving dinner and your cousin or your aunt or whatever it might be just got their vehicle service and said, when I was there, it wasn't that bad of an experience. And that gets shared over. And like you said, that's a best kept secret. People are like, oh, I had no idea that they had, full working stations and they sent you videos and all that. So the more that you can get that in front of them and market that, because it differentiates you and your brand. It's not just, oh, you're a Toyota store, oh, you're a Honda store, and oh, it's a typical experience. It's you as your specific dealership and that experience you present.
And I want to mention, we've run a campaign, and it was an Audi store, and you were part of this, for an Audi store that had these processes, and it was, we service all makes and models. And it wasn't even a year. I think it was 8 months, and he was up $1.5 million in operational gross doing that. And he said, I'm going to invest in service. We had like a $5,000 budget. It was a few years ago. So, and people were coming to an Audi store with all makes and models for service because of this transparent process. And he believed in it, and he was investing in it, and it paid off. So you asked me why I'm passionate about this subject today. It's because I've seen it work, and, I'm proud of the results, helping dealers, like that succeed, because it's fun for us as marketers to get a challenge and then, be told like, oh yeah, it worked, because it's like, this is why I come to work every day. Right.
Well, and when you can tie it to tangible results, it's even better for a marketing individual, right? I hate to say this, it's just because I'm on the service fixed op side, right? And I'm not so deep into the marketing, but the common thing is like marketing is always based off of like, oh, we've got this many leads that came in, right? But oftentimes it's not on the tangible results. And on the fixed op side, you can truly see those tangible results of like, here's how many more appointments were actually scheduled. Your show rates went up, the amount of money in ROs of customers actually showing up, you were able to directly tie that back to your marketing campaigns. That's great information for you, especially as a service manager, to take to your marketing team and say, hey, when we ran this, here's the results we got, right? It's not just leads. They're actual people who showed up to our dealership and got their vehicle service. So I think that's hugely beneficial, especially on the marketing side for you guys, to take that and be passionate around the work you're putting in is actually driving that specific tangible result for the service department.
Yeah. And for the dealer to be involved, that's where the magic happens. When a dealer is involved with the advertising and they say, okay, I have this challenge, and we say, okay, I have a way to solve this. And then they can come back and show us the results internally as well. It's important to share information like that, as far as gross and all in those metrics, so we can see, we could tell you how many conversions you got, but we don't know, how that really paid off in the dealership as far as the
Absolutely.
ROI. So sharing is important too.
I was going to say the GA results are only going to give you so much information, right? It's getting
Right.
that next level data. And especially when you partner with fixed operations tools like us, right, where we have that information readily available for you so that that
Right.
can be presented in one area to the manager to say, hey, here's what we did on the marketing side, and here's the direct results on, the information based off your service tool there. So,
Yeah.
awesome.
So good point. Yeah. You can measure this.
Absolutely. Well, Connie, this has been great conversations going through, and appreciate your insights. And I'm sure there's, as you and I talked before this, I'm sure there's so much more information we can provide out to the dealers regarding this. So for anybody listening on that's looking to get started and actually, maybe even audit their current marketing process, what's the best way for them to get started? How can they, maybe reach out to you directly? We can share your information, but what would be your last bit of information to leave to those dealers?
Yeah, you can visit us at cfsearchmarketing.com or on LinkedIn, CF Search Marketing, or just reach out to me directly, Connie at cfsearchmarketing.com. Like Brandon just said, we can audit you. It's a free audit. So we can show you who's showing up, what competitors are showing up for those keywords, where they're showing up, and then give you recommendations as to what budget you should set and where you should be.
Awesome. Well, again, Connie, thank you for jumping on, and for everybody listening on, please do reach out to me or Connie if you want more information or would like a free audit, and look forward to really seeing the results for 2025. I think it'll be great, Connie. I'd love to have you on at the end of this year because I really think this industry's shifting this year and we're going to see a big change in fixed ops. So I'd love to see the
That'd be
results
great.
again.
Happy to anytime. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, have a great day, and thank you everyone for joining on the Service Lounge.